Oh. Hey guys, this is Derek Duplessis from the Duplessis Foundation here on our very first episode of Mission Chats. And of course, somebody's doing some type of construction under us, but it's totally fine. I'm with Coleman Gax from Viv Web Solutions. And today we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts for non-profit websites. I'm working on mine right now, so this is going to be very informative. And we're actually going to do one thing before we do these live sort of analyses of very well-known websites. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts and some best practices for nonprofit websites. But even I want to introduce Coleman a little bit and talk what he does. And we're going to do that right now. I'm going to share my screen, see what I see. Take it away and show us what you're all about.
Thank you very much, Derek. So I'm a creative director at Viv Web Solutions. Um, we build websites for a lot of nonprofits, small businesses, some startups, and I'd be happy to I'm happy to talk to you a little bit today about website design. You're here on our homepage. You can see we employ special kinds of nerds who get who get jazzed up. And As far as do's and don'ts for website design, I can give you sort of a punch list of some of the things that I would say. Oh, today if you build a website, yes, you definitely want to make it mobile friendly. You want to make it tablet friendly, and beyond that, you want to be building. And this is something that a lot of people are making this mistake. You want to make it retina friendly. So that is that on a device that has double the pixels, which iPhones do, but also MacBook Pros, and you're going to see more and more of these devices that have double the pixels. You don't want your website um, looking blurry and not sharp. So that's so I can give you some of those type of tips, and we might hit some of those when we look at some of these popular websites. But I think more important to you, if you're somebody who's working in a nonprofit and thinking about what you're going to do with your website, is to think about the process of it, and make sure that you are choosing the right people to work with, and that's really critical. Know what you're looking for, basically, and that's part of that is to be realistic about what you have for a budget for this. But also, probably more importantly, is understanding what you've got for a goal for your website. So, what's the goal of this? And it might be you might not have thought about it more than the mission of your organization. But when people come to me for website design, they often they think that they need a website, but they really are looking for it turns out they need much more, and they often need branding. So they need their logo redesigned. They need writing for the site. They often, I found, they even have to rethink their program areas to make it more more easily communicated set of programs that they're talking about. So there's all these other things that they need to do other than just create a website. But the baseline thing is, if the organization needs to be very clear about what its goals are, that I just can't do for your organization. Everything else, so we're what we call a full service website design firm. So we help with all the different aspects. So like the logo design, to help you get in touch with or help you hire a writer. Even video, if that's the direction, that's what makes sense for your website. We'll help you figure some of this out. So we kind of give that full service type of experience, because we've done this so many times before. It makes sense. So these are things that theoretically somebody else in your company might be able to do, but we consult on making all these other marketing decisions. So, but in the end, you have to know what your goals are. And part of that's defining the audience as well. Sorry.
No worries. No, that was very informative and beautiful. And what we'll do is we'll have a PDF you can download in the description, and you can check out some like a checklist, if you will, of do's and don'ts for your websites. So the meat and potatoes of today is going through some actual websites of organizations that you well know and trust, and seeing what they're doing well and what they could be doing a little bit better. So Coleman's actually doing this blind. We have not sort of talked about this uh, on the front end, just saying that we're going to do it, but we haven't talked about which websites we're going to take a look at. So this is totally flying blind, and this should be very interesting. So the first organization we're going to go for is a big hulking foundation, the Boston Foundation. Now, they're the second oldest foundation in the United States. They have billions under management. So what we're going to do is check out the Boston Foundation's page and break it down to the ground. So first, Colin, tell us a little bit about this homepage. What do you like about it? What are some of the great features?
So the Boston Foundation, actually have been on this website and looked at it for inspiration before. They did a redesign not that long ago, and so there's a lot to be said for this site. Now I have to refresh my memory, so it's not like I really know the site at this point. But one of the things that always, so I was talking about mobile friendliness, and I'm gonna see. I want to change the size of this window here a little bit. That's one of the things that I always enjoy looking at a website is how it will react to different screen sizes. And in this case, it's actually interesting. They went the method probably of having a separate mobile theme. There's a lot of websites that are responsive now. So as you change your browser's window size, the website will change with it. And right now, this is not doing that, or either that or the screen isn't reacting quickly enough. But so in that here they must be. So you'd have to check this on your mobile phone to see what it's going to look like, and that gives you a whole different perspective on how the site is designed. So here, what I see is actually they're going with a triple menu, which I honestly am not crazy about here, because they've got this what I call the auxiliary menu up here. And then they've got this kind of what I would say this is the main menu. But then they've got this other like second auxiliary menu. So I'm not crazy about this. I find it's getting a little bit cluttered for my taste. But you often see this like two parts of an auxiliary menu, and it's okay. But this having a really clear menu set is really important. And as part of that, you want to put things in the places that people expect them to be. Creativity is all good and well, but in the end, for navigation, one of what I think is like one of the most important things is this idea of this concept of "don't make me think." So it's also the name of one of the biggest user interface kind of bibles, and so when I go to a website, I want everything to be so clear I don't even have to think about why it is. So these are good spots for this is where I'd expect to find about and contact and news and events. So these are where I'm expecting to find these things. So that's a good place to put things, where it's expected.
Now, tell us a little bit. So they are a big organization. They're over 100 years old. Says it right on their logo. So they have a lot of content. With an organization like this, do you recommend having all of these sort of touch points where it's one-stop shopping, or do you recommend trying to have some type of flow where you don't necessarily have a lot of elements on the front page, but you can channel people into a few key areas that might be sort of the landing pages for other types of content?
So if I understand the question correctly, I think, on this site, I like that. See, they have what's called a mega menu. So it really means, yeah, they are putting at your fingertips an enormous amount of content all at basically one click, at one hover and a click. And there's positive and negatives to that. where they're really driving you through is on their slideshow. There they're giving it fair clarity that they've got these really focused messages on the slideshow, and that's a common way to do it, is that you're offering a lot of content in the navigation, and then this really focused, much more focused content on a slider. I like that they put their kind of objectives right here front and center, and in the end, you have to think about what the audiences are. And I was saying that earlier, where you have to think about the goals of this organization, what their audiences are. And with a site like Boston Foundation, theoretically they have a lot of audiences, but they might have really prioritized some in it. And the way they're organizing their site really shows us something about what they're prioritizing. This is soliciting donations. That's what this site is. Even if they don't have a big donate button, I mean, you see the first menu item is giving. And then even the other items are all to tell me that the Boston Foundation is doing great work, and I should become part of that. Nowhere on here is it saying, oh, you've come to the right place for help, necessarily. So, and even if I'm looking for a grant, if I'm somebody looking for a grant, I actually am lost right now. Mm. So in that way, they've made a pretty bold choice. This is for funders. So actually, and that's a perspective that honestly they could give a little bit more thought to that audience, I think, because there's going to be a lot of people who think that they might qualify for a grant. And now, that being said, just because I can't find it right away, I imagine so I would be able to find it. That's one of the things that I recommend is when looking at a site, like a serious site like this, where some thought has been put into it. This is at the level you should be doing user testing. Right? So, and part of that can be, you don't actually have to find someone looking for a grant, but you pretend that you're doing what you'd want someone to do. So we could do a quick example, like right now with this. I could say, all right, and maybe that makes sense for you to do, Derek. Do you want to try to find how to get a grant? I mean, I suppose we could go to the search bar, but.
Well, they have it in small text here, grants and
there you go.
For investing nonprofits, but the main title is not very clear. You sort of have to be scanning.
Although so let's say you wanted to make a request for money for the Duplessis Foundation. Here. How would you do that right here?
That's a good question.
I mean, it might just take us 30 seconds.
It's not very clear which one I click to do that. So it's really interesting.
Oh, grant guidelines, maybe. So I think we maybe have found it. And problem line, we have to kind of do some reading, which is fine. I mean, if we would be looking for a grant, then we'd have to essentially do some reading. So I think we did find it. It wasn't really meant for. It was in a tone that was suggesting from a founder's perspective.
Sure.
Or a funder's perspective.
Sure. So what we're going to do now is move on from the Boston Foundation site, and we're going to, these are friends of mine, so it should be fun for me to critique their websites. So what I'm going to do now is go to another organization that's really near and dear to my heart. We're going to go to SummerSearch, and they recently had a redo for their website as well. It'll be interesting to see your take on them.
Right.
So,
all right. So here, like the Boston Foundation, so here we have two menus: the basic menu and auxiliary. It's a good way to go, and that here that they could break their main menu into very few items, which I like to see. I hate to see a menu with that's overcrowded with too many items. And this is also, this is also part of a trend, but it's a trend that's a positive one. From a design perspective, some of this, in a way, the site looks like it wasn't designed for the logo. It's like it almost like it's a little bit like there was a template which they put this logo on, and it's not exactly, so for a design perspective, there might be a more elegant way that we can get some of those words under there, celebrating and 25 years, to maybe be a little bit larger, and maybe even the SummerSearch text is getting a little bit dwarfed on this website. That being said, it is kind of what's considered a very current look. It feels very open, and this is the sort of site that is likely to play well on mobile as well. So that responsive thing that I was talking about before, I bet if we change this, it's actually probably going to turn into like what we call a hamburger menu. That's what I call a hamburger menu, and so it becomes a very clear mobile menu. Slideshows sometimes struggle on sites like this on the mobile screen, but relatively they're doing pretty well. I've seen you can still read the slideshow, so they're actually doing really well, basically with that quick mobile test. As I said, clarity is great. Here also they're going with oh, actually this is just a drop down extra menu. I'm seeing this places. I've never, honestly, in a way, this is where, for somebody who has the time, I'd test a menu like this a little bit if I was really concerned, just to make sure that people understand this is a different type of menu. I don't know if the viewers know. So this right now is not all about our programs. Now this is the who we are and the get involved all come down when I mouse over any one of them. It's a new way people are doing menus, and honestly, I just don't know if all the people, depending on your audience, if you have an older audience, will they get that, or will they be really confused by it? Because it's a new way. It's a little bit of a different way of doing menus. It's different than that other site where we had kind of a mega menu that was specific for the one. This is a mega menu that shows you all the sub items.
Now, it's interesting because in the internet marketing world, I've seen a lot of sites where the navigation, the top items here, you have a sense of what they might be about, but you don't have this sub menu with all the items. It's like they're forcing you to go to that section of the website, and that becomes a landing page for those items. For me, it feels a little overwhelming to have all of these things to look over, because I have to make a choice, and now I have almost 20 items to choose from. Well, how do you feel about that? Do you like the one-stop shopping, sort of have everything right there in one menu, or do you like sort of creating landing pages and just creating calls to action with the actual the navigation?
Right. This is a great question, and I don't have I don't have a definitive answer on that. As far as one thing that I'll say is based on what you're saying is that if I have 3 big landing pages, it gives me a chance to really think those through and make each one of those still the top, an experience that's exactly what I want the viewer to be seeing, because I have a control over that. Whereas, so I think we went to why it works or our impact here, and what we're finding is we're finding some broken content, right? And that's so you have to be realistic about what you have time for and to do, and that might be the size of our browser. Maybe somebody thought about it as a different browser, but they never tested it on the smaller browsers. So that's probably actually, we can see now what happens. But so that was a short site here there's a combination of the developer and the designer kind of, and it's not a big deal. I can still read it, but as far as our level of faith in this organization, it now diminished a little bit. If this is the first time I click, right away I go, oh, what I want to know is their impact. And because I knew what I wanted to find, and then I see this is really kind of diminishing my kind of the credibility of the organization a little bit. It's not a big deal, obviously. I'm not saying the organization still sounds like I mean, from everything I'm seeing, it sounds like it's an amazing organization. But as far as the website design, that's not what. So what you're saying has that benefit. You can really focus on those pages. On the other hand, I actually do like these drop downs for the most part. Not this one specifically. I think this is confusing, but just to make the one for whatever I moused over, because you remember earlier I was saying my big thing for user interface design is don't make me think. Okay, so I always was going with that thought. Don't make me think. And if I have to choose who we are or our programs or get involved, maybe I have to think a little bit hard about which one why do I want who we are opposed to our program or something. Maybe the drilling down helps me a little bit I'm not sure, this is a tough one to say, honestly. I can't, in a way I can't drive it. I can't drive that point totally home. It's a little bit of a preference. It kind of comes down to, do you feel like you can make one page, the Our Program page, that will really be highly impactful? Or is it hard for you and you can only make a why it works, or our location, or our supporters.
Well, let's click our program and see what happens.
Programs, great.
No, this one right
sorry,
the top one.
Oh,
in the navigation.
Oh, in the navigation. Well, yeah, what? And these pages tend to be. So they did something with this.
Interesting.
So what's interesting to me about this is if you do this type of drop-down menu,
yep,
you're going to have very few people clicking just on our programs, probably. So if you're going to, it looks like they put a lot of effort into this page, and they would have to look.
Really good looking page. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, and they thought about it probably a lot, and they put. I mean, this is infographics on here. I mean, this stuff takes a lot. Someone had to sketch this and then design it, and then it went through iterations. I mean, this is like a lot of serious work. And you know, honestly, I bet if they looked at their logs, they're getting very little traffic on this page. I bet. Now, that being said, right now, this page theoretically should be a gateway to all these other pages.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I don't know if they're using it that way.
Yeah, they're not doing it that way.
So in that way, now, in a way, I'm kind of like lost as to, I mean, that's almost pretty standard, is that if it's going to be, the top level one should be the gateway to the other ones.
Right.
And so they're not doing that way. So I would say I'm not psyched about, you know, you want to do it the way that people expect to find for the most part. Overall, again, the graphics on the site, the font choices, very attractive fonts, very clear, I like the big bold pictures. It's a very attractive site in a lot of ways. Maybe minus that logo decision, but all in all, like just a very and the font, what the fonts tell me, this kind of give this sort of strength, have this sort of strength to them.
Yep.
That I don't know much about the organization, but maybe it really it kind of gives you a sense of confidence and boldness that they probably was good to what they were going for.
Last thing with this page, the donate button. Clearly, it's blue. They want to call attention to it. What are you seeing now? People, you know, Boston Foundation didn't have a clear donate button. These guys do. Are you a fan of the donate button? Is it something that's going away? What do you feel?
I think it's a tone question. Boston Foundation is not looking for you to click on that donate and give them $10. I mean, they'll take your $10, but they're looking at donors who are making a decision in the millions sort of range, I think, or hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands.
Sure.
So this idea, this sort of, this is almost a convenience thing. Like, oh, I can click donate and hopefully it'll, you know, let me pay with PayPal. And right here, I'm going to whip out my credit card. And I mean, it'll let you whip out your credit card and give $10,000, but really, you want to check for that. You don't want to pay the taxes, the fees either. But anyway, obviously we could donate with credit card, I'm sure, on Boston Foundation if we want to. But the point is, they're not going for small donors. So this comes back to this. Both sites could have made really good decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
It's just an audience difference.
Gotcha.
So some research might be looking to the Boston Foundation.
Yep.
But Boston Foundation is looking to, you know,
bigger fish.
Big fish, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to go to one more site. Our good friends at ScriptEd. Just want to make sure. Oh. Hold on. Script. Hold on, I have to make sure it's the right one. Right.
So just to go further on this idea, I mean, this is one of the points I really want to would like to drive home, is that website design, it takes a little bit of empathy.
Sure.
And if you're not, if it doesn't matter if empathy comes to you naturally or not, as a you know, somebody working at a nonprofit, you don't. It's not. I mean, it's this type of empathy is not. There's ways to formalize it and make yourself do it.
Yep.
And one of those is to write what's called personas. And those are, so I keep talking about keep talking about audiences. So the person seeking a grant to get a grant is one of them with the Boston Foundation. I'm sure for that website redesign, we're not talking about a small redesign. We're talking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on a website. And I guarantee you somebody has that on a list, has a list of audiences, and they might have even made a persona where they, where they, for each of those audiences, write a little bit about about what that person's looking for, who that person is, what their age range likely is, to really give the web design team an opportunity to really empathize deeper and go through the site thinking through each type of audience member and really drive home that empathy. So I'm not asking you to do empathy calisthenics without any help. You got to use the tools that'll help you be empathetic, and personas is part of that, one of those tools.
Sure. That's like a whole nother conversation by itself. Personas is a very interesting topic. Well, let's look at ScriptEd,
Right.
and give me your thoughts on ScriptEd, about their navigation, about their homepage.
Sure. So here you see the basic dropdown. I do prefer this to the other dropdown we saw before as far as clarity. I'm not seeing all the different dropdowns at the same time.
Yep.
Which I do think this is an older way to do it, and I think there's still a benefit to doing it kind of the more traditional way. So in general, this more thing, I've had to do it as well sometimes, but it's not the most. I'm not crazy about like more. Like, what does more tell me? More tells me, I have to think about these 4 things, figure out that what I'm looking for isn't going to be there, and then I have to go for more. So it's not a big deal, but it's just not really. It's not the most elegant solution. If you can avoid it, if everybody who's working on this website spent a little bit more time in a room together talking this through, they might have found a way to put this under here somehow. In the end, who knows? Maybe this is the best way,
Sure.
but an auxiliary menu is the other possibility, or something else. It's just I like to avoid it when possible. In the end, as I said, I've done it as well. Sometimes it's just the information can't all be organized in few enough items. So again, going through here as a type of depending on audience, I don't know a lot about this organization, but I like kind of the boldness and the clarity of it all. This idea of putting stats on the homepage, it's becoming a really popular thing. I must admit, I'm building a website also that's doing this right now, putting really bold stats. People, we're in a time where people really appreciate hard facts, and nonprofits really have to prove their impact. And so these sort of stats help them put the numbers to it. And this is the sort of thing that, for my client, what I've identified was for them, every audience of theirs would be interested in their statistics, it turned out. We had an audience, I think 7 or 8 different types of audiences. They had from funders all the way down to students, and a lot of different types of administrators in between for this organization. And it turned out even to the students, this would be interesting. Some of the statistics would be interesting. And similarly, this type of statistic, it could be interesting even to a student who's I don't know if student is one of their potential audiences, but even to a student who happens upon this website, they could say, oh, only 1 of 10 high school students offer computer science. I'm looking at this fact here. Oh, great. Well, I'm really lucky then that I'm getting to do computer science. Or, okay, well, that makes sense. My high school doesn't have computer science. It's not weird that it doesn't have computer science. These are good, so they're facts that could, but obviously in a way they're geared towards funders and people thinking from a very high level, but everybody cares about this type of information. So it's good. It's a good type of choice it can be a good type of choice for a homepage. I like that they're asking for donations again in a different way. This is one of the big questions when I talk with nonprofits. They're like, is the donate button going to be huge and red and on there? Is everyone going to know how to donate? And often the answer is yes, we're going to put the donate button on there, although as we talked about with Boston Foundation, it doesn't make sense for everybody. But why not, make the ask again in kind of a fun way? And I like the boldness of this, a boldness of their ask, and the user interface. For a moment there, I was confused how to do it, but I figured it out. I have to press enter. So afterwards, now it's a little unfortunate they didn't seem to capture my $400 into the form. Oh, there they did. They did put it into the form. So nice. So yeah, so I think it's a very nice looking website. from a kind of a first glance perspective.
Now, this is a um, forced scroll website, right? Do you like that strategy, sort of going with not too much content and having it be where you have to scroll down to learn more about the organization?
Um, what I'm finding is that there's people who complain about these when they see them and they say they don't like sites like this.
Yep.
But so many sites are going this direction, and I must admit I think the last 3 sites we built did end up using, or maybe 2 out of the last 3 did go this route where you're really scrolling a lot. This comes back to the mobile thing. People have gotten used to scrolling, and so people used to talk all the time about above the fold. You're not going to see anything above the fold. 60% of people don't go beyond the fold. All this stuff, and there's still that above the fold conversation still can be
episode. So thank you very much, and look forward to awesome content that you can implement and use for your organization today. Take care.